how did you start? And Charles, why don't you start? How did you become the voice of Rodger Rabbit and like 5 other characters in the film?
Bob Zemeckis saw me do stand-up in Los Angeles and brought me in to help them audition actors that would eventually play Eddie Valiant. And after several of those, asked me if I would be willing to be Rodger.
Were you reading as Rodger at the time, or were you reading just whatever characters that they were interacting with?
No, they wanted me to do Rodger off camera so they could do screen tests for an actor who would eventually play Eddie Valiant.
So that ended up being Bob Hoskins.
It was.
Would you remember anything about that particular audition?
He was from England. I worked with Ed Harris, James Wood,
oh, okay.
a few other people.
And Joanna, how about you? How did you get attached to the film?
I think Bob saw Blade Runner and said, "Oh my God, I've got to have her in my movie." And I auditioned. I read with him. It was not complicated, and he read with me. And in the days, those were the days when directors made their own choices. There wasn't a million people who never went to film school. You know, he wanted you got the part.
Well, and the thing that's iconic, I mean, both those characters, the thing that pops into my head is amazing hair. Both the characters you played, Blade Runner and Rodger Rabbit, there was fantastic hair going on.
Hair?
Hair, like the hairstyles.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I can picture Rodger Zemeckis. I can picture Zemeckis sitting there going like, that's the hair.
No, I'll tell you something about the hair thing. That's an interesting story because I was a redhead. This is blonde now because I did Odd Mom Out, and when you're playing an upper class New Yorker, you have to be blonde. So 3 years ago I went blonde. And not that it was still red, but a bit of silver comes in here and there and so on. So the blonde is good, but anyway, at the time, Zemeckis said, you can't be a redhead because we already have one in the movie. So I dyed my hair brown. And then we had a little help from a fall, so made it a little thicker, but in Blade Runner, that was my own hair. Thank you very much.
I thought it was good.
But you're right, it's good hair. Good hair, yeah.
It was
and I love that style too. I mean, the 40s look was great. In fact, I went to an old makeup artist before I went overseas, and he taught me how to do 40s makeup, and I did my own makeup.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. Because I'm very fussy about that. And if I'm sitting in a chair where I don't feel comfortable, I'll do my own. And I like to do that. I was a model once, and so I'm used to doing that. There you go.
See, you learned something, right? So let's talk a little bit about the filming of the movie. Now, this was the first, as I recall, the first big-time use of animation working with live actors. I mean, they've done it on a smaller scale, and Mary Poppins and such like that, but this was the first feature length. So in your case, Charles, once you were chosen to be the voice of Rodger Rabbit, were you on set the full time? How did you interact with them?
Yes, my voice was recorded live on set, and I even requested them make a Rodger Rabbit costume that I wore as well.
A full-size ears and everything?
Well, if it wasn't full size, it would probably not fit, but yes. It's just a tiny size, and I only
wore it on your
shadows.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was always there, under the camera.
Well, yeah, I had my
costume
own
on.
space with my own microphone, and I had to watch whatever Bob did. And I came to call it trans-projectional acting, because whatever he did, I had to project myself into it. So if he grabbed me by my ears, I had to react to that.
And for the character, how did the voice evolve? Was that something you'd had before, or was that created special?
No, I'd never done that before. I had a version of. I used to do an impression of a flying saucer landing on a horse. So I had that, and then they told me that they required a speech impediment. And I figured, well, maybe that would work. So, please.
How many of you did that as a kid? Yeah, me too. I think I did that as my answer machine message one time. As an actor, Joanna, as you were dealing with this entity that was there but not there, how hard was that to interact with a cartoon rabbit that you had to conjure somewhat in your imagination?
You know, the only thing that was kind of interesting about it is that, you know, I knew that the rabbit would be this close. And it's very interesting with your eyes. The camera can see when you're focusing further or if you're at a certain distance. So that part was interesting, but you know, the part that was really hard was that Charlie was so funny. He was so distracting all the time that you just go, oh my God, how can I do this? But he was so very good. And so it was just a matter of that. They would put this little false fake rabbit in there and stick and say, well, this is where you're going to focus. And that's what we did. And it really is interesting. You can see your eyeballs actually changing distance, you know. So, made a mark and hit it.
And how much of it was, in terms of what you did, was it all following the script exactly, or was there a lot of improv, or?
No, there wasn't any improv with me. And I wasn't in the movie as much as Jessica, which really pissed me off. No, you had to stick to the script. It was strict script because it was so complicated. There were so many entities going on, special effects, and the cameras, and the actors, and the twirling of them. And then we had, at some point, we had a platform where you were in the bar, and all these animators were underneath it. You know, the weasels would come popping. It was unbelievable. So we would do 30 takes, I don't know, and so everything had to be exactly right. Timing had to be perfect. You had to hit it.
Yeah.
You had to hit it right. And it worked out, but it was a complicated film to do. And Zemeckis was really cool because I guess he was getting a lot of flack from back at the studio because, you know, it was. They're going, what are you doing here? Are you going over budget or what? Or we, you know, and we never knew. He was so cool. He was just very relaxed and calm, and the actors felt safe, and we had a good time.
So as you were doing Roger and you had to react, did you find yourself doing it differently or slightly differently time to time in those 30 takes?
As anyone would, each performance is somewhat different, I would think. And there really wasn't room for improv because, as I was saying, it has to be very precise and has to lock into the coverage that's already been established. So if you had an idea, you know, you could say about, what about this? And I say spine flower instead of, you know, for the brain. Because Roger would often go and have runs of 3, you know, da-da-da. And you know, if you say yes, then you can do it. But as far as improv, that did not occur.
Did you have any hand in writing any of the script? Like, because obviously it came from a book, so there was some existing concepts there. But were you involved in his actual creation?
Well, the book, the script is pretty independent of the book, but there are a couple little things where I made a suggestion. They said, sure.
Cool. I also am curious, so you also voiced Benny the Cab.
Correct.
Greasy, Psycho. So you must be account for a good third of the dialogue, I would think, in that film, if you add it all up.
I think that's a slight exaggeration.
Okay, a quarter of the dialogue in that film, if you have it all up. I'll keep going down. I'll go down as far as I have to.
I had 4 characters.
But that, so as you did the roles, as you did each of the characters, how did you keep them, you know, how did you get the voice of Benny the Cab and make sure it wasn't too much like the voice of Roger or the voice of...
Well, Roger was done originally, and then in post-production, Bob asked me if I would do the others, and I just came up with them, and that's, you know, your job is to, because somebody's making sandwiches, and how do you keep the ham sandwiches different from the roast beef? It's his job. unless he's making some kind of combo.
Did you read separately, like, or did you do anything as a group? When you did the voices and you were interacting with the other cartoon characters, were you just doing on your own in a booth, or were you
Well,
doing?
in principal photography, you're on stage, and then in post-production, it was just you and the team.
Okay. I'd like to talk really quick about Bob Hoskins, who passed away a few years ago, and just, you know, his role as Eddie Valiant. Any memories, any thoughts, stories? You know, give these people their money worth about Bob Hoskins.
Shirley.
Great. It was great.
His accent or lack thereof was striking. When you heard him in an interview afterwards, you're like, wait a minute, that's not what he sounded like.
Well, he was doing American, yeah. But he was quite English. Cockney as well.
Did he turn it on and off, like, between takes? Like, he would do it with his American accent, and then the take would end, and he would ask how it was in Cockney?
Yeah, I remember one day, so, what we did, we filming or messing about.
Except he didn't say messing.
You picked up that one.
Yeah, I think.
I just would
That's
like
why
to
they
ask
take it a big
why that
price.
man has a Muppet on his lap. Bit odd, but I can handle it.
Hey, Joanna, you got any thoughts?
He was just such a pro, and you know, I just loved working with him, and I think at the very end, I think Dolores and Bob necked a little bit, which wasn't on film. I'm kidding.
That's going to be on YouTube now. You just started the rumor.
Oh, no. Anyway, but no, it was. He was adorable. He was just adorable and smart and funny. And, you know, he was never an actor. You know that, right? I mean, he went in with a friend of his to an audition. He was just, you know, a buddy, and the guy went in, he did the audition, and he said, Bob, why don't you try it? And he went in, he got the job, and it was just, he was a savant, is what it was. He would look at a script once, he had it down. He just said, you never had to push him to get anywhere. He always went in the right direction. If you see many of his movies, he was phenomenal. I'm just so pleased that I got to work with him.
Do you remember his driver, stand-in assistant's name?
I was just trying to think of it.
Sammy Pasha.
Sammy Fleischer?
Sammy Pasha, yeah.
Oh, okay. Sammy.
It's very nice man, Sammy.
How'd you come up with it? That's amazing.
Sammy Pasha?
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't have remembered.
Oh, my memory is strangely accurate.
All right, so we're going to start. We're going to open up for questions here in a second. If you'd like to ask a question, I'm going to ask you to please come over here to the side and queue up, and I'll call you up, and you can stand right here, and I'll hand you the microphone, and you can ask the question. So don't be shy. I see one person making you know you have a question. So come on up. I would like to ask, at the time, you were talking about the studio asking quite like, what are you doing with all this money? How did you guys feel when it was done? Did you think this is going to be a big hit? Were there question marks? What was your thought?
I knew it was going to be a hit. And months later, we had to come back to redo a scene where Eddie and I go into the movies together. And we filmed it in just outside of San Francisco at an old movie theater. And Bob did 40 takes of us running up and down the stairs, leaving the movie theater. I couldn't believe it. 40 takes. I mean, literally running up and down the movie theater stairs. It was, I counted them. Yeah, anyway. So, but at that moment I thought to myself, okay, the energy's going into this. This is going to be it. And plus, Bob is a genius, and he had it all worked out. It just made sense. The characters were phenomenal. Sets were great. It just had that vibe that it was going to be a phenomenal film. There you go.
Yeah, Bob Zemeckis, he had Richard Williams, director of animation. Steven Spielberg was a producer. Combination of Amblin and Disney.
Yeah.
Jeez, what
Can't
about
go
this
wrong.
could go wrong? I don't think much. Yeah, it was, and when it came out, it was, of course, received with kudos.
And I'm curious, you guys are of, of the generation that you grew up with a lot of these characters. So you had the opportunity to, be in scenes potentially with, Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck. But all these characters that you grew up with, that had to be kind of cool to
Wait a
get.
second, you're dating me.
Well, me too.
But, yeah. And they were it. That was, you had cartoons before the movies came on. That was the name of the game. It was, you'd go to the movies and then you'd buy cartoons and they were fabulous. Roadrunner and all those wonderful characters. I loved them. So to be in a movie where there are cartoons again, it was amazing. I loved it. It was truly, I was
Yeah, never been anything like it, and probably never will again. It still holds up. We were both at a screening in Los Angeles about a month or so ago for the 30-year anniversary, and in this big old theater, the audience was as receptive as the very first week it opened, and there were certain lines that got laughs that I hadn't heard get laughs before. I think it holds up as a classic.
Well, I definitely agree. And I was curious, though, I want to ask about, so there's a movie coming out in a few weeks, the Happy Time Murders, which is Muppets. And when I heard about it, my first thought was, I liked it better when it was Roger Rabbit. I mean, it's the same. But are you guys familiar with that film at all? Or?
Yeah, it's a Muppet thing. It's something about not Sesame Street. I think there's a lawsuit or something.
But the concept of there being a reality, like the cartoons being real, the cartoon characters being real, and they get offset, and the baby is actually smoking a cigar, and gruff old man versus the little cute baby. It's the same basic premise. I see a connection there, and I kind of feel like there's an influence.
Well, Muppets are always real, and they're always real with the real world, as opposed to animation, which is done with ink and paint or pixels if it's computerized. So I think the similar genres of mixing the fantastical with the authentic, however, most would discern a difference.
All right, do we have anybody who wants to ask a question? Come on up.
I'd like to ask this man to leave, please. Oh, you can, or ask him.
Come on up.
I rewatched the movie a couple of years back. And when I was watching it, I noticed a lot of adult-oriented humor and material in it that I never noticed when I was a child. And I was wondering, when the movie was being made, were you intentionally putting in that material with the assumption that kids wouldn't get it, but the parents would get it?
It's called a double entendre. And yes, to both.
I have an answer to that. There were a lot of things in that movie that you didn't see that would definitely make it not a child's movie.
Like a booby trap. Double. That's the double part
He's
of the
enjoying
entendre.
it. He's enjoying it. Clapping. Okay, great.
Paul Rubens, prior to my involvement and prior to Zemeckis' involvement, did a test as the voice of Roger Rabbit. And he also has the same birthday as myself and Barbara Bach and Lyndon Johnson. August 27th, so keep your gifts under 500. Say your birthday too? Oh, that's not the 27th. But the lottery number 255, 254. No, sorry. It's got to be right on. But I appreciate your camaraderie. Well, we're both August, which is named by Julius Augustus Caesar, because they were the 10 months prior to that. Winter holidays were moving into the summer, so Julius Augustus had in July and August. Yo, true time.
Yo.
I know Bob Zemeckis had asked, one of the suggestions for Christopher Lloyd was to not blink while portraying Judge Doom. Was he as intimidating on set as he was on screen?
You mean Judge Doom or Bob Zemeckis?
Judge Doom, sorry.
No problem for your apology. Well, yes. I mean, if you see it on screen, that's what you see on set.
Was he in character, like, is he method acting more or less, or was he, how did he get into that character?
I don't think I'm at liberty to speak about that. You can ask Christopher.
We'll have him here next year.
I was in the makeup room with him because we had all the prosthetics, and I was in there with the hair thing, and the makeup and blah, 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 and he was the sweetest, funniest guy. Just adore him. And then, yes, of course, once he got on the set, that was the ticket. He became Judge Doom. Yep, that was it.
Come on up.
I'd like to ask about the scene when Roger is smashing the plates over his head. Was it hard? And it was a little machine, right? Robot arm.
Yes, that was a sort of a robotic arm.
Was that hard for Joanna to interact with?
Well, that was one of those days that was the 40-take day, you know, you had everything going on, and it was crazy. It had to be done a lot. There were a lot of plate smashing.
And then clean up between it.
And I think we had like a bin in the back that was filled with broken plates, yes.
Oh, and is it true that you walked around on set in that rabbit suit and took a lunch break?
Yes, it is true. And also, when I was at the studio, which was Elstree Studios in England, at the same time they were filming Superman, and somebody from the cast said, because they'd seen me in the cafeteria, and said, I saw the god playing the rabbit. Doesn't look anything like a rabbit.
I just like the idea that somewhere in an LA landfill, there's a big pile of broken plates from...
Except that would be in England, not
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. My mistake.
But that's okay, not even a mistake, it's a misconception.
Certainly not the first one. Okay, come on up, Lando. You kind of look like... Are you Lando?
Yeah, I'm Lando.
Okay, you look like Lando. All right.
What are you dressed as?
Lando Calrissian from Hollow, so...
Oh, yeah, you look like the waiter I had.
Yeah.
El Capitan Restaurant. May I take your order, please? We have a beautiful black curry, served on a bed of flute.
So I have two-part questions. One part question is, first off, I know you mentioned this one time, doing Rodger Rabbit, nothing can be done ever, but what would a modern version of Rodger Rabbit be like? How do you think?
Modern version?
Yeah, like a CGI, would you think to go back to like drawing? How would it be? What do you think?
It wouldn't do drawing, it takes too long.
No?
No, it must be all digital.
Most likely be all digital, all CGI characters? Okay.
I think that was the last of its kind.
Yeah, it was so original, so
Yes.
great film. Second question.
What you saw was a modern version of Rodger Rabbit.
Hey, what?
It's like, it would be a modern version of the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, like second or one of the two. Now, my second question number two is now controversy. People maybe not know. Who do you report to? Because who owns Rodger Rabbit? Is it Universal Studios or is it Disney? Because sometimes it's kind of like you guys are back and forth. Like who officially owns the rights to Rodger Rabbit, the character?
It's Disney and Amblin, not Universal.
Oh, Amblin.
Was
Yeah.
had their office at Universal, but Spielberg and Disney.
Okay. Oh, so it's like a shared back and forth kind of thing.
I don't know how much back and forth there is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I was wondering.
It's
Yeah.
more back than forth.
Yeah.
Maybe
Okay.
more third than fifth.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Orlando. Hold the tomatoes.
Borrow.
Wherever you want.
This gentleman is wearing a shirt that, with a guy you recognize, Mr. Harrison Ford, and his grin. So we were talking about Harrison right before we came on.
People commented to me on my shirt today.
Well, you know, it's a pop culture
That's a
convention. That's what we
reflection of
do.
you. Thanks for sharing.
No, I don't have a shirt with Harrison. Wow. Maybe you'll give it to me later. At the end of the show, here, you can take it off. Yeah, okay, you too. I don't care. I don't care. It's all out.
My question is on the proposed sequels to Who Framed Rodger Rabbit and, you know, the current fate of the possibility of ever producing a sequel. Because, you know, in the 90s there was an idea for a sequel called the Toon Platoon, which was going to involve, you know, Rodger being, you know...
That was actually a short that was featured on a poster in the Loon's office.
Okay, because I remember there was going to be like an actual like, you know, script and everything, but...
It was going to be a musical at one point, it was going to be this and that. The chances of that happening are about the same as you being the next Harrison Ford.
I have no intention of being the next Harrison Ford.
Well, I think that answers your question.
Yeah, because actually it was pretty much next when Spielberg decided to not do the project because he had done, you know, Schindler's List and he was just, you know, he felt he couldn't, you know, set her as the Nazis anymore after working on that project.
I don't think that's substantiated by fact.
Oh, okay. Well,
Thank you for bringing up the Holocaust.
You know, but basically, then there was also...
stand-up comedian here.
I'm not going up against it, we're just talking about...
Okay. And anyways, then there was, you know, Who Discovered Rodger Rabbit, you know, that was, you know, like in the early thousands, you know, that was going to involve, like, you know, computer animation and stuff, you know, and that didn't get off the ground. And then later on, there was, you know, a proposed, you know, it was done by the author of the original novel, Who Framed Rodger Rabbit. It was called The Stooge. It was going to be a buddy comedy of Roger Rabbit and Mickey Mouse.
That wasn't proposed by the studio.
Well, no, it was proposed by the author.
By who?
The author, Gary K. Wolfe, who wrote the original Who Framed Rodger Rabbit novel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was Eric von Wenke actually originated that. And then he was but that wasn't
Okay. Well, anyways, about 2 years ago in an interview, you know, when Robert Zemeckis was on his film Allied, he was asked about the possibility of a sequel, and he said that the current corporate Disney culture has no interest in Roger, and they certainly don't like Jessica at all.
Once again, I cannot substantiate that.
Okay.
But Indiana Jones, you do have a shot at that.
Well, the next film is going to be coming out next year, I believe. It's going to be number 5.
And Rogers might be in it, so keep your T-shirt on.
I was wondering, you know, if you guys, you know, would like to, you know, were interested.
How many questions did you have just now?
Actually, that's not a question. It's just a
People
comment.
behind you.
All right.
It's not that you're not being specific, but
So flat
Thank you for your
out,
answer.
will there be, do you predict the likelihood, 0 to 100%, there will be another Roger Rabbit film?
less than 0.
Less than 0?
Less
yeah?
than 0.
Okay, there you go. There's your answer.
Just get really drunk and watch the first one again.
StocktonCon either promotes or denies that recommendation. All right, here you go.
I've actually done that before. It's pretty awesome.
Especially for the kid.
You actually took my question, so I just want to say thank you guys for being here. I
You're
was
welcome.
I was at the movie the weekend it came out, and it's still one of my favorites. So I just want any
Keep the sun out of your eyes, man. Keep that visor low, because the sun could show up any minute.
yeah. But any specific memories you guys?
He's fun.
Any favorite memories, I guess, from the filming?
Just vague memories for me,
It's funny.
nothing specific. Just colors, sounds, and the smell of English people.
What does that smell like?
I remember tea.
Cigarettes
They always had tea.
and tea.
Yeah. And you know, we shot some of it in LA, and then we went over to London. It was broken up, which kind of made it even more interesting to do.
All
I
right,
have
so
some very famous shots of Bob Hoskins and I on the beach together that were shot in, before to show that we were boyfriend and girlfriend. You've never seen them, but they're out there somewhere.
And also, don't forget to come upstairs and visit our booths. We have chocolates.
Chocolate pictures.
Well, I think we have time for one more question, because we're going to have to wrap this up here in a second, so sir, we'll have you come on up.
Why don't them both come up and ask it at the same time?
That would be it. Well, we'll see how long this question goes, and then we'll answer the next one.
We might have time for
Hello, my name is Shane. I wanted to know how long did it take you to do the voice impressions for Rodger Rabbit?
Well, they weren't impressions because I originated them.
And when you do stand-up, do you do those also on your stand-up?
I don't do Roger when I stand up, but I do voices.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for your questions.
All right, you're welcome.
Let's get this brother too,
All
man.
right, come on up, come on up.
You need some soap or anything?
Part about putting a movie. There are three parts about putting Roger. There's three parts of filming it.
Oh, my favorite part?
About filming the movie Roger Rabbit.
Oh, my favorite part was when I was sitting on a barrel in an alley pining for Jessica. And I was kind of crying. Because it was really emotional. And my youngest daughter's name is Jessica, not related to the film, prior to. And I had an emotional connection to that name that created another level of reality for me and my tears with Jessica. Playing a patty cake with that fat.
That question also goes towards you. No, you, yeah,
Towards
you.
me? Oh,
Yes.
okay, all right.
Your favorite part?
Oh, all right, great.
Yes.
Yes?
What was your favorite part?
Oh,
No, filming it. Up in the movie. Filming the movie.
Your favorite memory?
oh, I guess
Yes.
I guess I said, is that a rabbit in your pocket, or you're just happy to see me? I must have said that a million times, and I just don't know how can I say it now. I can say it now. I can say it that way. You know, so then I just started imagining a rabbit in his pocket.
Thank you
But
for
I
your
have,
questions, though.
I have one more
Round of
thing.
applause for the young man with the question.
So before we wrap up, sorry, you were saying.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, please visit my website at officialjoannacassidy.com. I do more than acting. I take photographs and do a lot of other things.
And I would
Remodel
also like to
houses,
say,
you'll get to see some of those. So please
visit
come-
her website.
Please come and visit me.
And you're on social media as well?
I'm on social media, Instagram, Twitter.
The real Joanna Cassidy, is that?
Yeah, join, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
The
that's it.
official JoannaCassidy.com.
Sorry, what?
The website
Is officialjoannacassidy.com.
Check out my MySpace page.
MySpace!
And do you have social media as well?
Of course.
Where can people follow you?
Oh,
Is there a Twitter?
Instagram, Moleeds2737, Twitter, Chaz Fleischer, Facebook. Just Google this shit, bro.
I also need, before we go, I do want to say he has a TED Talk. So if you should go look it up right now. You want to give the 30-second pitch on your 14-minute TED Talk?
It's 18 minutes. It's about Moleeds, which you may or may not know. It's a mathematical construct that I discovered over 30 years ago. It has to do with the underlying mathematical principle of the universe. I also have a paper on gamma ray bursts on the Cornell University website. And they just made a new discovery that from gamma ray bursts in the light curve, there's incidents where it appears that time is moving backwards. And the hypothesis of my paper is that gamma ray bursts are indeed a form of communication from ancient, highly advanced people.
And it's on the web. If you go to his Wikipedia page, not that you should necessarily, but if you do go, it's linked from there because I was looking at it
Good
yesterday.
call, Samuel.
So they're both up on the fun deck. They'll be there for the rest of the day. They've got photos. They've got cool things to sign. They will take the time and answer your questions.
And then they'll call it the fun deck for nothing.
Exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a huge